What's something someone did that convinced you they were a complete psychopath? Story 1. At a daycare where I used to work, there was this stepmom. Whenever she picked up her 3-year-old stepdaughter, she was the nastiest woman in the world. We had to be careful with what we said to her because anything negative meant that little girl would get punished. For example, if we mentioned she pushed another kid, the stepmom would give her a spanking. She also did other weird things. Even though the girl was fully potty trained, she insisted we put her in a diaper before she picked her up. If we didn't, it was the first thing she did herself. And not a pull-up either, an actual baby diaper. We were convinced it was just to humiliate her. She even had this smug grin when she did it. We told the little girl's dad, but he never believed us. Then one day they came together to pick her up. Instead of that mean woman, it was like Mary Poppins showed up, a complete 180 in her attitude. The next day, she was right back to her old self. Story 2. My estranged mother bought cats solely because she planned to kill them. She didn't want my younger brother growing up a pussy because he dared to cry over his goldfish when he was about 6. Years later, that weirdo threw a cat out into the street because she was tired of it trying to slip past her legs onto the porch. She left it starving outside for several weeks, getting hurt by other cats. When she finally let it back in, she threw it out again, claiming it had peed on a rug. The whole time she knew she had locked it in the bathroom with nowhere to go, since she never even gave it a litter box. She was just looking for an excuse. Every time I think about that cat, I remember how it made me realize I could never consider her family again. Story 3. I worked with a guy, let's call him Steve. Steve was always messing around at work. He didn't seem to care about anything and would never take accountability. He slept with a coworker who, in my opinion, was kind of vulnerable, then ghosted her despite working only 10 meters away. After that, he claimed she was crazy and said he'd never touched her. The girl he slept with was one of the kindest, if a bit naive, but genuinely one of the nicest people you'd ever meet. We all knew he was full of shit. He'd constantly brag about things like changing his name to avoid child support. When child support eventually caught up with him, he bought a Mac just so he'd have no money to pay, thinking that would get him out of it. Then he sold the Mac for cash to survive the month. Eventually, work just started paying his salary directly to child support. Anyway, we both applied for the same internal role and were interviewed. I got a call from the boss saying I got the job. A few minutes later, Steve called to congratulate me. I said, "Cheers, man, appreciate it." Then I got a message from the boss saying, "Don't tell Steve you got the job. We'll tell him tomorrow face to face." I told him Steve had already congratulated me, but the boss insisted it was impossible he knew. That's when it clicked. He had played me for information. And that's when I realized, you're an actual psycho. Anyway, fuck you, Steve. You were the weirdest douche I've ever worked with. Story 4. When I was young, I had to live with my grandpa and his girlfriend because my parents were in prison. She was the most evil person I've ever met. She abused me, but treated my younger brother like a king. She locked me in the basement for days, tied me to a potty chair, and once when I cut my foot on glass while running through the house, she made me stand on that bleeding foot in the corner all night on a school night. She made me hate my mom, constantly telling me it was all my mom's fault my life was like this, and that she didn't want me. She would force feed me until I vomited, refusing to let me leave the table otherwise, then call me a fat ass. That one has stuck with me the most because I've struggled with bulimia and weight issues my whole life. She would touch me. I used to have nightmares and wet myself, and she'd beat me, rub my wet clothes in my face, and tell me she'd train me like a dog by rubbing my nose in it. She called me a whore for having boyfriends at school. I lived with her from ages 3 to 8. Eventually, she told me I wasn't allowed to make friends at all, so I isolated myself out of fear, convinced she'd always know if I did. She escalated the isolation, taking my brother to birthday parties, Halloween parties, Christmas parties, while I was always made to sit alone in the back of the room with my head down, not allowed to talk to anyone. No matter what, I was always in timeout, just so she could keep me isolated. Story 5. We started a relationship, both of us in our 40s at the time, because I propositioned him. I just wanted to get laid, lol. First time I'd ever done that with a tourist. I thought I'd never see him again, but he kept in touch. He came back into town a couple of weeks later, and we spent a few days together. It was great. The hotel was right across the street from my favorite bar, where we met. It turned into my first long-distance relationship. I notoriously hate talking on the phone, But with him we could talk for 3 hours, and it felt like 30 minutes. We shared music, talked about books, movies, and our past. He helped me through my ex being a crazy stalker who broke into my house. He even gave me a Ring camera and everything. I bartend, and since he has a job that can be done remotely, I only visited him once, but he would come to see me fairly often. He even had a key to my house, so he wasn't stuck while I was at work. Sometimes his roommate would be nearby when we were talking, and eventually she started jumping into our calls. It was actually nice. He once told me she didn't know he was sleeping in my bed, but brushed it off as her being overprotective after his crazy ex. He made it sound like she was just looking out for him. If she knew about our constant calls and his recent exes, then surely my red flags had to be wrong, right? Then, a few weeks ago, she brought up coming to visit with him, which he encouraged. Since I had people staying in my spare room, I said I wasn't sure about the sleeping arrangements. That's how I found out. She's been his girlfriend for a decade. I was the side piece, and she's actually really, really nice. He never apologized. Instead, he just kept saying, "I got what I wanted." As if I was the one who messed up. This isn't what I wanted. I was just set up to fail. Today was supposed to be our 2-year anniversary. I thought I had something really good. Fuck you, Jim. I deserve better. Story 6. When I was in grade 1, I had a teacher who used to bully a poor student. Every day, she beat him up for no reason. And I mean really beat him. Punching, kicking, pulling his hair, and verbally abusing him. One day, he was playing with another classmate during lunchtime, and they accidentally bumped into my table. The cold juice I was drinking spilled all over me, soaking my clothes. I was afraid of the teacher, so I didn't tell her. I had a weak body, and eventually that incident made me sick. When I finally got better, I returned to school with my mom, who came along to explain to my teacher why I had been absent. After my mom left, the teacher asked me who had spilled my juice. But before I could reply, she cut me off. "No, don't say it anymore. I already know who it is. It's that demon over there, right?" Then she pointed at the bullied kid. I said no, but she insisted I stop lying. She went on to beat the child again and told someone to call his father. His father eventually came to the school. He was an old man who looked unkempt. People were right when they said they were extremely poor. The teacher insisted the kid should stop going to school because she could no longer take his attitude. The father begged her, but she refused. The father left with his child. I don't know what happened to him afterward. I felt so bad. Later, I was switched to another class, and I never saw that teacher again until graduation. I will never forget the look on her face whenever she beat that child and mocked him. She really did look like a psycho. Story 7. I had an ex I went on a road trip with. Big mistake. She used to say worms were eating her brain. Turned out her ex had tried to poison her with formaldehyde. Wonder why. Anyway, she would verbally abuse me to the point of tears constantly. She even bit me once when I tried to hug her. No physical or romantic contact unless it was sex. We went on this long-ass road trip to see MC Chris, which we didn't even need to do because he was coming to our state the next month. She didn't tell me that until afterward. I took her to the beach for her birthday, which just turned into a huge fight because she was a monster, just spewing hateful, demeaning shit all day long. On both trips it was the same. I don't know why I cared about her or why I stayed as long as I did. Sex makes men do stupid things. And I know my story doesn't sound nearly as bad as some of these, but that woman had, I'm sorry, carved into her leg. Both trips were extremely traumatic because they were the first times I'd gone anywhere far away with someone who wasn't immediate family. And I'd been verbally abused my whole life, this time by someone I loved. She even laughed at me when I said yes to her asking if I loved her. I don't know what I was to her, probably just a pet to torment until I finally stood up to her. It also makes me very sad. I've been single for a long time because every time I try again, I find out the person is abusive in some way, and I'm just not about it. My last relationship was a year ago, lasted 3 months, and she said the most awful things to me anyone has ever said, right when I was going through a really tough time after my grandma died. But I'm 340-something days sober now. Still, my God, is love dead? What happened to it? Why are people so awful to each other these days? I just want to love someone again and be loved back equally. Nowadays, you can barely even find anyone to talk to. We've all become far too jaded. Sorry this turned into a rant. Story 8. My ex. I was trapped in a highly abusive relationship with her, also F, and despite seeing all the signs, I was basically convinced I couldn't get away from her. She did all kinds of psychopathic things, intentionally sabotaged my reputation in our community, abused my animals, and drove me to the brink of making a permanently bad decision, if you catch my drift. We ended up homeless for a year and a half because of her. Also, she could play the hero when she got us back out of it, since she claimed she knew how. This was after a disastrous workplace injury that left me disabled. She managed to drag me 700 miles away from my family and friends so we could squat at an internet friend's house for a few weeks. Then she got a job and we got our own place. And that's when things became horrific. She refused to clean up after herself, would literally use her hand to wipe and smear it on the wall, refused to shower, intentionally kept me awake. I was allowed maybe 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night, intentionally hurt me during intimacy, and physically forced my compliance through exhaustion and pain. The police wouldn't listen. The final straw that gave me the courage to leave was the night she pulled a knife on me and made me watch as she flushed all of my prescriptions down the toilet, essential pain and anxiety meds that kept me out of the hospital. And why did she do it? Because someone on the internet told her no. Story 9. My ex relapsed and got extremely drunk about a year into our relationship. He had been sober for a couple of years when we got together. He was ex-military with severe PTSD. I'd already been suspicious he was up to something weird since he'd started keeping his phone upside down a lot. One night, while he was passed out drooling, I decided to go through it. I found tons of videos of him pretend fucking the bed with the camera set up across the room. He never talked, just watched himself on camera, thrusting in different ways. Then I found messages where he was blackmailing someone named Alex into sending him videos of her pretend fucking the bed, threatening to release everything he had to her husband. He made her do weird positions and say bizarre things. After getting the videos from her, he'd make his own videos of himself pretend fucking the bed again, but he never sent her anything back. Then I discovered an entire hidden folder, thousands of naked photos of him posing in different ways, every single picture with the eggplant emoji covering his dick. Some shots had him with his finger in his mouth, some with him standing like he was being sassy or flamboyant. I waited a few days to confront him since I work long hours. For weeks, he manipulated me, insisting I made it all up, even though I had everything saved on my phone. He was so dedicated to his lies and so unable to control his temper that he actually called the cops and told them I stole my own pressure washer after I told him I was moving out. When the cops showed up, he backtracked, saying it was just a dispute and a mistake. After they left, he disappeared for a few hours, then came back and acted like nothing had happened. He went into the bedroom, came out with a pocket pussy, and sat in a chair masturbating with it right in front of me. I moved out the next day while he was at work. Story 10. I was with my best friend, and she wanted to go back roading with a couple of guys she knew. Sure, fine, whatever. We got in the Bronco and hit the dirt back roads while listening to music. All of a sudden, the truck came to a stop, they yelled, "Possum," and ran out. I got out too because I thought they had seen an injured opossum and I wanted to help. Nope, they wanted to stomp it to death, and they did, even with me screaming and crying. My friend tried to brush it off like it was no big deal. I told them to take me home, but they wouldn't. I had to sit in that truck with those jerks until they decided the night was over. I did everything I could to ruin their fun, just so it would end and I could go home. I've never seen anyone take so much pleasure in violently killing a helpless animal that had done nothing wrong. Editing to add. This was 30 years ago, before cell phones were common. They were still about 2 years away. Story 11. I actually caught the guy acting weird completely by accident. I never suspected anything until I saw it. He was a new employee, and I had even done his interview. He seemed like a nice guy. For context, I'm a production supervisor at a factory. One day we had an injury, so I pulled up the video feed to review what happened in order to fill out the accident report. As I was watching the area where the incident occurred, I noticed myself on another camera talking to this new guy. I heard the injury happen, so I turned around and ran toward where I could hear the injured employee screaming. But when I turned my back, I saw the new guy spaz out on camera. Naturally, I switched the feed to his view to see what the hell he was doing. He was making motions like he was pretending to strangle me, stab me, and then stomp on me once I hit the floor. I immediately clipped that video and sent it to HR and the plant manager. HR was so concerned they had me take a few days off while they fired him. When I came back, everyone thought something had happened to me. A few people had seen his psychotic episode, and since I disappeared from work for a few days, rumors spread. But you know how HR is. Everything hush-hush, so nobody was told that they'd just asked me to take time off. The weirdest part? All I had done was ask him how he was liking the job, or if there was anything he didn't like that I could try to fix. I asked the same thing to every new hire. For some reason, this guy completely freaked out about it. Story 12. Former best friend. I thought she just had debilitating anxiety until we became roommates. She was asked to be a bridesmaid for a mutual friend and accepted. At the time, she was studying for a huge test and couldn't make it to some of the bridal party events because she basically had to study all day, every day for a while. During one of the get-togethers, she couldn't attend. She posted an old photo of herself at Disneyland on social media with no caption. The bride-to-be saw it, assumed she was at Disneyland instead of studying, and sent her a message saying she was out of the bridal party if she was going to lie like that. My friend explained it was an old photo and she really was at home studying. The bride apologized, but my friend was so offended by the accusation that she dropped out of the bridal party anyway. About a year later, the bride needed a kidney transplant. Since they hadn't spoken since the Disneyland incident, I told my friend what was going on. The first thing out of her mouth was, "Well, I'm not going to donate," with a completely deadpan expression. I wasn't sure how to respond, so I just said, "Okay. Well, she wasn't asking for donations. I'm just telling you what's happening." From then on, every day, she asked me if there were any updates about the bride, always reminding me that she wasn't going to donate a kidney. The way she asked grew nastier and almost gleeful, like she was hoping for bad news. Later, we were all invited to a barbecue by another friend, but she refused to go because she didn't want to see the bride. When I got home, she bombarded me with questions: how the bride acted, what she did, what she ate, what she wore, her current weight and size, and of course, whether she mentioned her at all. She got furious when I told her the bride hadn't said her name once, ranting about how she must think she's better than everyone, not to say anything negative about their falling out. It was insane to me how she went from loving this girl as a close friend to obsessing over her for so long and even hoping she would die, all because of a misunderstanding. Slowly, I realized she genuinely felt that anyone who upset her should die. It was creepy as hell. I had been friends with her since middle school, and this all happened in our early 30s. It's scary how you never really know someone. I've got several stories about this former friend, but this one always sticks with me. Story 13. I was part of a hiring process for a help desk position, and one of the candidates was the 20-something-year-old son of a current employee who swore her son was technically gifted. He bragged about being a webmaster and listed the sites he'd worked on, so I decided to look them up. Out of the ones still active, one was just his personal website. It was the typical GeoCities and Angel Fire monstrosity of the time: animated flaming skulls, dancing skeletons, a spooky tiled background, the works. "Welcome to my dungeon," it said in huge font, with a gif of him sitting on a fake throne, dressed goth style, holding a goblet like some late-night horror host. Totally over the top, gother than thou nonsense. That alone, I could have overlooked. But then I clicked on the links. One of them had a series of photos he'd taken, printed, and scanned. This was when digital cameras were expensive, of him and his goth buddies urinating on random things, with full stories about it. That was the whole point. Them peeing on steps, walls, benches, newspaper vending machines, soda machines, and even house doors. Then making jokes about it. One caption read, "This is the house of Mrs. Greenstein, my former 4th grade teacher, and a Jew. We did this every weekend for months until she got a security camera, LOL. So we smashed that and peed on it." Complete with photos of the stained door and broken camera. That was bad enough, especially considering they were in their 20s. But then I saw worse. They would go downtown, find homeless people passed out or asleep, and pee on them, like some sick jackass stunt. One caption read, "That old shit chased us for 2 blocks, haha," along with photos of the homeless man flipping them off. Psychotic. We didn't even know how to process it. Meanwhile, his mom kept asking when we were going to call him for an interview. Yeah, no, absolutely not. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, activate the notification bell, and share a similar story or anything you'd like to say in the comments. See you next time.